We're on. Could you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Chris, roll call, please.
Here.
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 Division 5.
Here. Do we have a forum? Public comment for items not on the agenda. Michael?
Good morning. Michael Taylor. I live in District 1 of Nevada City. I just wanted to again reiterate how appreciative I am of this board, Jennifer, and the NID staff. You guys do an amazing job. A way to kind of explain how I feel that you guys are doing an amazing job, as well as having these workshops, is in Nevada County, the Planning Commission, if for some reason in that district there's something going on, they'll vote in line with that person in that district, and that's what's best for the community as a planning commissioner. They do the same with the Board of Supervisors quite often, voting whatever or how that supervisor thinks it should happen in his district. So it's not taking in the consideration of the whole county, in my opinion. At times that happens. I wanted to point out also that Trevor in the last meeting voted no for taking the Centennial Dam, tabling Centennial Dam. And I wanted to express my appreciation that because it's his district and he was voting no, that you guys still voted what you guys believe was best for the district. With that being said, I do believe that taking Centennial Dam off was strategically not best for the board. I think that the opposition you guys are going to have raising Rollins Lake 50 feet is the same opposition you're going to have for Centennial Dam. And I think that leaving Centennial Dam on the table until there was clear direction or approvals or raising Rollins Lake would have strategically made more sense, giving you guys some leverage. We'll take Centennial Dam off. We need to raise Rollins Lake. I think you're going to have American Indians, you're going to have property owners, you're going to have the same circle people, you're going to have all of that same opposition that you had for Centennial Dam is now going to shift to not raising Rollins Lake Dam. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Consent agenda.
Mr. President, I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Public comment? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes.
Yes. All right. And we're going to now our workshop items. And I just want to also say, I can't say enough how effective these workshop items are.
Yes.
Saving time, getting to the core of the issue. Greatest thing since sliced bread.
I don't know about that.
Since
Thank you.
committees.
I don't like sliced bread.
I like workshop items. So we're going to get a PG&E update. Brandon's here. Thank you. Probably there is better.
Do I need to put you on?
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Once again, Brandon Sanders, Sierra Division Government Affairs, PG&E. I do have an update for you today on our ongoing work around Spalding. I'm going to reference some notes here just so I don't miss anything. Apologies for reading off the phone. It was easier than scribbling it down. So we continue to move approximately 450 CFS through Spalding 1, and we'll continue to do so until we begin repair on the second PRV liner. The next round of work there, we're diverting approximately 70 CFS at YB 244 into the South Yuba Canal. So there is water flowing there as well. The next round of work on Spalding 1 to again replace that second PRV liner is anticipated to begin on March 1st of 2025. Of course, weather dependent. We'll be monitoring flows and coordinating, of course, closely with your team through the winter, and are certainly, you know, open to a change in course depending on what kind of winter we have and the water availability coming out of next winter. All work is complete on the South Yuba pipe, as you know. Our teams have demobilized from the hillside, and that's all good to go. The critical components to repair Spalding 2 are out to the vendors, so that includes working on the bearings and the governor to bring that unit back into service. We expect to have that unit returned to service by March 1st in time for the second outage on Spalding 1 to repair that second PRV liner. In the event it's looking like we won't be able to make the repairs in time, we do have an alternative plan in place that will allow us to bypass water through Spalding 2 PRV by installing what's called a scroll case plug. And then in either scenario, we would be moving approximately 140 CFS through Spalding 2 unit to meet the demand in the South Yuba, into the South Yuba Canal, up to about 95 to 100, and spill the rest into the Bear River that would ultimately end up in Rollins Lake. Next week, we are going to begin testing the alternatives path to ensure that it is a viable solution in the event that it's needed. And I just want to note that the continuous bypass of water through the Spalding 2 PRV is not a typical operation. So we're going to be testing that. That is essentially the bulk of my my update. I think as we go into the winter time, the updates are going to be lighter as we just, you know, get the equipment back from our vendors who are doing the machining and whatnot. And as we approach that March 1st sort of operational period. So I would just, you know, maybe suggest that perhaps we change the update intervals, because there really won't be a whole lot of substance to present at these meetings over winter as we work with our vendors to get the machining on the bearings done and the governor and all that. So with that, I'll take any questions. Of course, always willing to take feedback back to the team. I know that we continue to meet with your operations team at regular intervals, as we do with PCWA as well. And those collaborative efforts will continue indefinitely as they have and really always have. So that's my update for this morning. Thank you.
Before we have questions, as far as meetings, could it be at your discretion?
Yeah, I think I could coordinate with Brandon and the team.
So Jennifer would be, and then if we have questions, we'll funnel them through you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, and I'm not, it's not that I'm unwilling to come to the meetings. I love Nevada County. It's a beautiful drive on a Wednesday morning, but I just don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of substantive update as we, you know, work with the vendors to get the equipment and all those types of things.
So you'll coordinate that with Jennifer?
Yeah, absolutely.
At her discretion if we.
Yeah, I think on a going forward basis, if Jennifer would like us to be here, she just has to let us know and we will.
Thank you. Questions?
Can you tell us when the testing on the alternative path will be completed?
Yes, I believe they said that was, the testing was going to commence next week. That would be yes, next week we are going to begin testing the bypass on Spalding 2. So that would be putting water through the PRV in Spalding 2 and into the South Yuba pipe.
Right. And what's the duration of the test process?
You know, that I do not have, Ms. Hull. I can certainly ask. I don't know if maybe your operations
Yeah,
team has a sense.
I think
of
Chip-
timing.
Chip knows.
I do know that it's going to begin next week, but I'm not sure of the duration. So perhaps.
I think I can add a little bit. Chip Close, Director of Water Operations. So the outage is going to begin on the 14th, 15th to put the plug in place. And then they're going to do a short-term test to make sure it works, shut it back down, inspect. If that's good, they're going to turn it back on and let it rip through the winter. There will be periodic shutdowns just to inspect and make sure it's not doing any damage. This is not a normal operation, but we're thankful we're giving that a shot and trying to get as much water as we can back into Scotts Flat.
So that means that we would be then being able to refill Scotts Flat during the winter?
It would mean we get extra water into Scotts Flat. We need Mother Nature to help us along the way as well. We just can't quite get enough through the South Yuba Canal to fill it all the way back up.
Okay, well, that's great if we can filling.
We'll take any help we can
So,
get.
so is it like a 3-week process, do you think, from start to finish? Or-
Oh, no, it sounds like it's literally days
Okay.
to get the plug in and then test it, make sure everything's running okay, not doing any damage. And then, yeah, they just going to run it the rest of the winter. I should add in there that during storm events and whatnot, we will be cutting those flows back to protect the South Yuba Canal, and that's normal standard operation. But hopefully on those shoulder events where there are no storms, we can run it at max capacity.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chip, for the save there. Appreciate it.
And then,
Mhm.
whoops.
Yeah, go ahead. Follow.
I had a question on the root cause analysis that was going to be provided to our board or to management, and I'd like to get an update on when our management team will be receiving that.
So what I've been told is that we've provided some initial findings to FERC, but that's considered critical energy infrastructure information, is not subject to public disclosure. So at this point in time, I don't have a sense of the timing on any, further release of information around that, but I think those conversations will be ongoing.
Brandon, that's a little bit concerning because we did receive an email indicating that PG&E was not willing to provide that, as we had previously discussed multiple times. I've had multiple discussions with different members of PG&E. And I think the primary issue we're having is that there are confidentiality clauses in our coordinated operating agreement that allow for each entity to provide confidential information. So it's unclear as to why PG&E thinks it's appropriate to use the security designation from FERC to deny us access to that information when we could obtain it anyways. We're just going to jump through a bunch of hoops to obtain it.
Yeah, I haven't really been briefed up on that particular piece. All I can say is that I was told it was not subject to disclosure under the coordinated operating agreement.
Well, it's in the public's best interest that there is a common understanding between the two entities, since we are so commingled, as to what caused this issue. And I don't, in the citing of the FERC secure infrastructure rules doesn't actually apply. So we're a little bit confused with this change of direction.
Well, all I can commit to is carrying that feedback back to leadership within PowerGen and asking them to further consider release of that information to you, but I'm not
just,
able to commit to that.
You know, at the end of the day, I think that it just results in us and the public perpetuating a sense that PG&E is hiding something. So it's just concerning,
I certainly understand how you would feel that way, for sure.
especially when we've been told, I have been told by multiple people that we would be able to obtain that information. And now this is a complete change of direction.
Yeah, I would have to defer to power generation leadership, but I will approach them with that question and that concern.
Because we can obtain it anyways. There's other avenues for us to obtain it, but I don't know that it's in the best interest of PG&E's relationship with the community or with us to make it overly difficult for something we could ultimately get.
Yeah, I definitely acknowledge that. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to deliver that document at this point.
You didn't bring it with you.
I wasn't.
didn't.
I
You didn't bring it, right?
In the car.
That's a decision that's made far above me. I don't really have a good answer other than what I've been told is that it's not subject to disclosure under the coordinated operating agreement. And that's
Wow.
really the message that I have.
Just reinforcing Jennifer's good words is, this is kind of outrageous, that you would not provide something that we've been told that management would be given. That was made in multiple representations and multiple meetings over these past months. And to all of a sudden say, oh, so sorry, to something like this, that it's the foundation of understanding what happened here,
Yeah.
is.
I do have a note on that. Let me just refer back to my information here. So, I think the way it was explained to me is that the analysis isn't final. That's at least my understanding.
But it is or is not final?
I don't believe that it is. I
But-
think that the filing with FERC was just one component of the overall investigation. So I don't think it's a end all be all determination that nothing will be disclosed. I just think that it's not, the full analysis isn't complete. It was just one component of the broader investigation. That's at least how it was explained to me in the meeting I had yesterday. So.
I have
Well,
kind of a follow-up, yeah.
What quick one for me? So now we found a reason for you to come.
Right. I'm probably gonna find someone in leadership.
So you're with someone else.
So you don't have to come, right?
I'll come too. I mean, honestly, I'm all about showing up. I'm never gonna shirk away from, showing up and being present. I'm part of the community too. I'm a District 4 resident. I want to be here. I want to support the community. I want to be available to you all. There's just points in time where I'm, given what I have to work with, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So.
Thank you. So this is a follow-up because I wanted to differentiate. So in the FERC memo that PG&E sent, I'm sorry, in the memo that PG&E sent to FERC, let me just start over. There was two different things that was referenced, and one was the cause evaluation and analysis of the repairs of the PRV discharge horns. Okay, that was one. And the other was failure analysis of the stainless steel liner in the Spalding Powerhouse 1, and then the pressure relief valve. So what I'm seeing here is there's two different things. So I just want to be clear. Are you telling us that your comments about this being protected under the critical infrastructure language is for both of those items, or is one different than the other?
I don't have that level of detail, Director Heck. I can't really adequately answer that question. I would believe that all of it was covered within that document as sort of one piece of the broader investigation, but I would have to further investigate that internally to find out.
And then you said that you were told that the analysis had not yet been complete. You just said that a second ago.
I was told it was one component of the broader investigation. So there are additional pieces that need to be.
And so then the
But he didn't.
follow-up to that is, when is that expected to be complete?
I don't know, but I can certainly ask and find out, report back.
Yeah, and I add my voice to the choir here. This is truly outrageous that this is a backbone, our main artery, if you will, and to not be provided the information for our staff and management and board, and most importantly, our public, is outrageous. And I believe we have a right to that information, and I expect PG&E to, for lack of a better word, cough it up.
I definitely acknowledge those concerns. It's not unreasonable. All I can commit to is carrying the message back to our leadership and
Okay,
asking them to respond accordingly.
thank you.
So I concur with my fellow board members. I think for me, this whole process, the whole time I'm sitting here listening to these updates, it's the frustration is around this is our water. We have no control over the process of fixing it or investigating it or anything. We have no part in that, and we're not even allowed. I'm feeling like we're not even being allowed to be part of it. Okay, and this is a frustration for me. Second part of my question is technical one about the plug for the scroll plug. I assume that this is a technical one. I have to know this stuff, right? You're plugging the turbine from running and the water's going out the pressure relief valves now? Is that what's going to happen with that?
I think that's a rough description.
Yeah.
I'm not a technical expert by any means. I believe it just bypasses the general.
It's just a curiosity. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like I will see you all in 2 weeks.
And it would be great if you could bring something
I will
of
definitely-
substance.
I will definitely
Yes.
lean on leadership to get better
Thank you.
clarity on that.
What is the capacity of Fordyce and Spalding now?
Oh my, I don't.
How
have
much
that
do we
answer.
expect?
I believe that Fordyce is being drawn down for,
Repairs?
face repairs, I believe. I have a fact sheet, a public facing fact sheet on that I shared at one point that I can recirculate that describes that project. That's one thing I can offer on the Fordyce piece. It's a project description with timelines and things. I can dig that up and share it back to the board.
So I guess I'm leading to a point where if we have a dry October, November, December, how much water can we expect to get in from there into Scotts Flat?
Yeah,
Shaking his head.
Chip is, yeah.
That was my question also, Mr.
Yeah.
President, about the, just another chink in the
Yeah, so
going forward.
Fordyce and Spalding is PG&E water.
Right.
The water we'd be importing into Scotts Flat is our own water and would
Correct.
have to come from Bowman, Jackson Meadows, and all of the above. Fordyce is drawn down to minimum pool for dam work that's going on. And Spalding is a little higher than average for this time of year, but I think that's on purpose because they need to do some dredging in the next spring. So trying to keep it full.
So we're not looking like we didn't get water because of PG&E outages and they owe us some extra water.
We stored the water we weren't able to send through the system is all sitting up at Bowman Lake and Jackson Meadows. So they're
About
much fuller.
185 or something, 188.
On the carryover. Yeah, I have the numbers. We can
Up there.
throw them up on the wall. But yeah, we're higher
It's
than
looking
average.
good.
It is looking good. We just don't have access to it.
Yeah.
There, because we can't get it.
So I guess that if we could still bring that water down during we have dry months and
So a couple variables. We can bring it down as long as Spalding 2 plug bypass is available to us or Spalding 1 horn 1 continues to bypass flows. We will continue to bring water across.
thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Brandon, I'm with everyone else. I think PG&E knows the root cause.
Mhm.
Now they're just trying to figure out how to package it.
Spin it.
And it would really help us to help you to know what we can do there to help.
yeah, all I can commit to is carrying the message back and asking for some direction, further direction. I don't have it to share or disclose today, and I apologize for that.
I understand plausible deniability works. So, thank you. I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think, I'll bring some friends with me next time.
Okay,
Thanks,
all
everybody.
right.
Michael wants to.
Oh, you,
comment. Yeah.
yeah, this is a workshop. Just got to get up and go.
Up and go.
Michael Taylor again. In the beginning, when I say beginning, many months ago, there was chatter. When I say chatter, I can't remember where, who was saying what, but there was talk about litigation or talk about liability. There's talk about losses and making different people responsible, whether it be PG&E or whoever for these losses. And I'm wondering if part of the reason PG&E hasn't gotten you guys the information you guys are asking for is that, also, it was my understanding that PG&E was going to come to NID looking for some of the costs to fix. And again, this is just talk from different, whether it's UBNet or whatever, but it seems to me there's still an awful lot of questions around losses and responsibility. And I'm leaning towards there's probably a possibility that PG&E is holding out on this information because this information could possibly be used against them in going after losses. I'm just throwing that out as an observation. But it would be interesting to understand where NID is and where PG&E is as far as losses and liability and compensations. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, thank you, Michael, or Brandon.
Thank
Michael
you.
and then Brandon, yeah,
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it.
okay. So next 4B, NID Strategic Plan Update and Planning for 2025. This is a workshop item.
All right, I will go ahead and handle this one. You'll have to forgive me. I am fighting a pretty nasty cold, so if I start coughing, I'm gonna try to make this quick. I can't talk for a really long time.
You want some
Don't
fisherman's
ask a
bread?
lot of questions that I had.
If you can talk besides me, that'd be great. I only have
No,
one
no,
cough.
I can't answer the questions.
Well, we have all staff can help answer questions.
This is the good stuff.
Oh, I've never seen that before. Oh, no.
That it wasn't open.
Oh, no. All right. I got the good stuff.
Yeah.
This is just an annual update for the progress to date on the board strategic plan. As the board is aware, the strategic plan was originally adopted in April 2023 after several great meetings and workshops to develop the strategic plan that included input from the board, the public, and from staff. So it was a really fun process, and it came out with some really good strategic priorities as well as implementation measures. One thing that I'll just say right off the bat, as with any good plan, when you start actually implementing the plan, sometimes your original plan doesn't make a whole lot of sense step by step wise. The overall priorities do, but some of the implementation steps don't. And we also are going through some larger changes related to staffing at the kind of department head level that will end up impacting a couple of these. So I do want to share with the board that I am going to recommend that we bring this back and kind of do a more thorough cleanup of it. And do that probably early in 2025. One thing that I had a long conversation with Director Hull about, I think she's correct. We do have ourselves loaded up with master planning. And in the context that Mr. Roderick will be leaving us and retiring in February, some of these dates might not be very doable when we're kind of doing recruitments and getting new people up to speed. But with that said, I just wanted to go through, we can go one by one. Nothing has really changed. We've made some modifications of moving dates. A lot of things are initiated, not completed, but initiated. And then a lot of items were also dependent upon the completion of the plan for water, which is, knows we just made those final decisions at the last board meeting. So I am open to handling this any way you'd like. Would you like me to go through every one, or do you want to ask questions? Or how would the board like to proceed?
I don't need to go through one by one. I think the general overview that you started with was more along my questioning. Not questioning, but observation that you just made about it's a great plan. As I was going through this, I go, it appears as though we didn't have a feeling that how many hours it's going to take to do each one, how much staff. That's
And that-
nobody's fault. It's just an observation.
Mhm.
I go, okay, I need to back off a little bit because the German in me wants to, okay, now we want to box all this and make it work. But then I said, no, this is more of a fluid process, an ongoing process. So
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Since you said what you did, I think it's a great idea to bring it back and then go through it one by one.
And then another thing I also think we should do, and I think this was also a recommendation from Director Holt, when we went over the operational initiatives. So board will recall we have kind of these strategic priorities, and the implementation activities are intended to support that any particular strategic priority. And then we have several large kind of operational initiatives that are going on. And those two, and we also bring those forth every year, kind of in February timeframe. And we've never melded those two together. So we kind of have two different initiatives going on. And I'd also like to, at that time, bring it back and combine them.
That would be helpful.
I think it'd be helpful too. I think it'd be clearer.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this through only the lens of the strategic plan and the operational initiatives only through the lens of the operational initiatives, it's difficult to ascertain the large amount of progress we're trying to make and how it does correlate with each other.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, I agree. I don't think, I personally don't need to go through each
Okay.
one of these items. I read them pretty thoroughly, and in our conversations, I'm in agreement. We need to do some updates and some melding of things, and this was a wonderful strategic plan, and now we need to revisit it and see, are these still our priorities? Have they shifted in light of all that has happened in this last year? So I think another look at it is a really good, sound thing to do.
Yes. So I have two reasons. Doug can't leave the room until this is brought back to us.
Okay, thank you very much.
And actually, anything else that goes wrong.
But it's important, yeah. Indemnification, that's, okay. So that, and then we're going to have a new director who hasn't seen this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like, with that regards, can this be handed to a packet? They're applying, give this to, as a packet so they can go over it and any other pertinent
Good idea.
information so that when the interview is, we're doing it, but also we will go over it completely with the new director so that they can be filled in. Then we're all on the same page. So we'll put that off to a time where all that can happen.
Okay, so we will try to bring this back before Doug leaves.
Yep. Yeah,
Merry
Thank you,
Christmas,
Doug.
Doug.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
so we'll send an Uber.
It's all the way in Montana. That might be a long.
It'd be worth it. So, public comment? Any? Seeing none, strategic plan workshop is over. Thank you. So now we're going to general orders. And the first one is the 2025 annual budget.
All right, I will handle this one also with the Sandra's assistance. So this is the formal presentation of the annual budget, and some of it is going to be 100% redundant. As the board is aware, our budget process includes completion of a board workshop related to the operational budget, then a board workshop related to the capital budget. And then we combine any input we've received, any concerns we've heard, and then we roll that into the final presentation of the budget. As we spoke about before, we are way ahead of schedule, and that was by design. We do want to get the budget done earlier in the year as we can because fiscal year turnover is January 1. And finance has a whole lot of work they have to complete, especially kind of in that holiday time period and the couple of weeks afterwards. So this will alleviate some of this stress. Before we dive in too much, a couple of things I want to thank the finance team and specifically Corey. He did a wonderful job with the budget. I know Corey's not in here, but thank you, Corey, if you're watching.
He's watching.
Hi, Corey. We appreciate you. The budget, we've been using the new software. Is this the second year or third year? Second year. We've been using a new software, so it enables us to more quickly develop a budget book and also make any changes to the budget. I know there's a point of frustration before when the board would request a change and the change was very minor, was, because of the complexity of the 8,000 Excel workbooks. Now we can do those things much easier and we can run reports better. It's easier to put it into the system and it's more transparent to the public, especially. And if you haven't had a chance, the 2024 annual budget book is linked on the website and it is a cool tool to use if you have had a chance to look at it. So this is the 2025 annual budget. We'll go through this quickly unless anyone has questions. This is very duplicative of what we've heard over the last two meetings. So we had the budget timeline. This is also part of our budget policy, is for the board to adopt a timeline every year. And that timeline is intended to guide the production, development of the budget, and then the final presentation and the public portion of that participation. And I think it's always interesting to note, so we start internally developing budgets about close to almost 7 months before the end of the year, because our budget cycle runs January 1 to December 31st. But it does take us about a solid 6 months to prepare the budget, present the budget, and then go for approval of the budget. So I think it's always interesting. We started this particular budget on June 11th, which feels like ages ago now. So the budget overview. Revenues, one question I always get, and I just want a quick reminder, we have revenues and outflows, or revenues and inflows. Revenues is actual new monies coming into the district, and inflows includes revenues plus transfers. So transfers aren't new monies coming in, they're just monies being moved. So sometimes people get a little bit confused between revenue and total inflows, but that's what that is. So we have about 80 million revenue coming in, and then interfund transfers about 30 million. These interfund transfers are largely reflective of capital projects, and then Fund 70, which is the cost allocated fund, which houses all the general administrative expenses. The only change to the cost allocated fund this year was we did move engineering over to
Right.
Fund 70. It is not, we don't just blankly apply the same cost allocation percentage to it. Takes into consideration capital projects for each fund.
So we will start the year about 134 million in reserves plus operating capital, and then we'll probably end around 127.
So that sounds about right, but also recall, we will, at the beginning of the new fiscal year, in probably February, March timeframe, we will come through and complete a reconciliation of the beginning year fund balance, because the budget is prepared based off of projections, and some of the large reconciliations, especially for OPEB and unfunded liability, aren't completed till after the fiscal year is over. So we do have adjustments as well as unspent capital funds or operational funds. So there will be another adjustment completed.
Right.
Expenses are a little bit increased over last year. The big increase is related to the need to purchase additional water related to the PG&E issue. So we did include about $1.6 million in the budget to purchase additional water due to the PG&E water shortage, which ironically gets paid to PG&E.
So
Say that
Does anyone
again?
miss that point?
It's not free this time.
No.
We'll just do a trade.
And I would imagine PG&E is really working with us on our flexibility. If we don't need the water, we don't buy it.
Correct. It's more purchase. It's not like a one time, we have to purchase it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I would expect them to work with us.
We've also had significant increases this year as it relates to power costs for running our pump stations to the tune of, what was it, Chip? $400,000. So that also is related to the PG&E issue, and those additional expenses also ironically get paid to PG&E. So
And talking with Monica yesterday, Monica is doing an outstanding job.
Monica is wonderful.
Monica's taking the biggest,
Amazing what
she's
you're
taking
dealing
the
with.
biggest hit in the reserves.
She is
Yeah.
taking the biggest hit.
Yeah, and the fact that anyone lesser would have maybe just thrown the hands up but
Yeah.
I mean, you're eking out every dime, every dollar.
Monica is the toughest cookie in the recreation world.
Yeah. And it's just that, yeah. But we have suffered losses there, and hopefully we get them back next year.
We will continue to manage the situation and report out on it.
President,
Rich?
Mr. President.
Rich.
I know, go.
Oh, okay.
You're looking that way.
I know, but you were looking this way, so we did.
So two questions, Jennifer. You mentioned the PG&E purchase we're talking about additional water or normal budgeted water?
Additional water.
Additional water,
We
okay,
had to also purchase additional water this year.
right, okay. And the other question is, you mentioned the $400,000 for pumping. Is there an estimate at this time of how much, this is a little off topic, but our overall cost for this event? The loss,
Upwards of 2.5 million.
2.5 million, okay.
Going.
Yeah, it's ongoing. We
Still
won't
going.
know.
It's still stacking.
Now, we won't know the full impacts until we get through next year. But you're certainly gonna be over, just in chip shop, over 2.5 million with all the water purchases.
And none of those costs are reflected in this budget,
The additional
the
water,
additional water.
yes, it is reflected. That's one of the things that is causing the expenditures to be increased so much
Mhm.
compared to last
That
year.
helps me with the deficit budget situation.
It is. We also included in there are the salary increases that were negotiated as part of the contract. So this is our second year of the contract, Greg, or is this our final year? Second year. Second year of the contract. The negotiated COLA is based off of CPI. I don't know that we've completed the calculation yet. The information only comes out on even months. And so we are just waiting, I think. Actually, we'll probably do it this month. Capital budget by fund. This
One
is,
more on revenue.
yes, sir.
So the county's looking at, maybe I should preface this. I don't see property taxes going up much longer, especially with the new property insurance bill. That's devaluating a lot of properties. So, but the county's also looking at the ad valorem tax. Will that affect us?
So the ad valorem tax is that 1% that everybody splits. And I don't know what is meant by looking at it. Are they looking at readjusting the tax sharing agreements?
Tax sharing or because the
that's-
1%.
I read it.
state
I'm not
law.
sure how they could do it, but
I'm gonna have to look into it. It has to be done by mutual agreement. So that I've been through tax sharing negotiations before. It takes years. We still should be receiving an increase related to the annual 2% adjustment and then anything based off of additional increment tax for assessed value increases, like large improvements or add-ons.
Okay.
The 2025 capital budget, we went through this during our 2 meetings ago, during our capital budget workshop. Nothing changed since then. So this is exactly the same. We are, as we talked about, we are keeping, especially the water fund and some of the hydro capital as tight as possible, gearing up for Scotts Flat Spillway as well as for the Chicago Park Rewind. We are still looking for additional monies for both of those projects. Doug and his team successfully obtained one grant so far, which we think is going to be around 5 million. We're looking into other grant opportunities right now, as well as some direct community federal funding.
And that grant was for Scotts Flat.
Correct.
Well, congratulations. That's a huge contribution.
Yeah. It is. And we're also still working with DSOD on the final design for the spillway. These are the listing of the capital projects. As the board is aware, a few years ago, we opened up the capital funds. So Fund 15 is a sub-fund of Fund 10, Water Fund. So Fund 15 is Water Capital. Fund 35 is Recreation Capital. And then Fund 55 is Hydroelectric Capital. And all of those roll up to their mothership, their parent fund.
the South Yuba Canal, how much are we going to spend there?
So we have, I believe it was 750. 750? Yeah, I think it was 750. Let me look.
There's 700 on the south.
Yeah,
8.5.
700.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the 8.5 mile side. We've also have had to do some emergency repairs recently to the other portions of the flume. So I will prep the board. You will likely see another kind of capital project come back forth related to some larger repairs on the flume.
Can-
The flume sheets, when the canal was dry for so long,
That was me.
This is not Maverick.
when the flume was dry for so long, we believe that the expansion and contraction of the material due to
That makes sense, especially with the heat. We had,
caused some very significant leaks. Our staff has been able to go through and Band-Aid and plug a lot of those. But there are some sections that need some additional assistance. We just haven't evaluated the extent of what we'd like to do yet.
Does 8.5 mile refer to the post mile or how long the slide is?
I think it's the post mile. Yeah, it's the post mile.
It
No,
just
the-
sounds like an 8.5 mile slide. No, no, no.
It's the post mile. It's always been referred to as 8.5 mile slide.
Okay.
That slide originally occurred what, like 7 years ago? Probably when PG&E still owned the facility.
Yeah.
It is a traditional landslide
Mhm.
and it is still having some issues, which not only requires a lot of maintenance, but it is at risk of falling again. So we are looking at a larger solution for the 8.5 mile slide. So that is what that money was slotted for.
Or- Go ahead.
Jen, in a previous presentation, when we saw the 5-year CIP, it had some broad numbers to be invested in the South Yuba Canal.
Mhm.
And so that will come back to us in the rate package as, you know, kind of where we want to settle on what's the annual investment there.
Well, yes, to an extent. It does go into the whole question of hydro revenue currently funds the upper division, rates usually fund the lower division, but from the standpoint that the hydro fund can't afford a project because it really is a water moving piece of infrastructure, we will have to look at recovering some of that revenue from ratepayers.
Okay,
So you will be seeing a portion of that.
okay.
Where did we land in this discussion? Is it upper division or lower division? South Yuba.
Upper division.
So any money for planning for a replacement?
A wholesale replacement is not included in
but-
contemplated in this.
But planning for it, looking at it.
No, we do have some money set aside in the operational budget for some additional engineering studies. We have to kind of get our minds together. Wholesale replacement, one project to replace the whole flume is not real practical. It's too long of, it's 17 miles long.
Right.
But we will be looking at systematic replacement of a lot of the wooden structures and then the pieces of flume that are failing. Doing like a study to cut off portions of it or not. We haven't quite wrapped our minds around how that would work, but that would likely be the next step.
And that's where I was going.
Mhm.
Parts of it. I mean, the whole thing is not possible, but
No, but there is some opportunity specifically with the slide area where if you could bypass that particular section, it would be really good because that landslide does not appear to stop moving.
Good.
We have about total, most of the maintenance purchases are equipment, which we've talked about. And then in hydro administration, there's about $5.4 million worth of projects.
What's the timeline for the completion of the field office?
We're doing the roof this year and then slated for next year was to start to initiate the rehabbing. There's a lot of electrical work that needs to be done. It should be getting close after the end of next year.
Okay.
We would like to prioritize that project so we can sell off the other.
Right. Yeah, well, and get the team into more spacious accommodations.
Yes, very
more
much so.
productive.
Yes, more productive is.
And then for IT this year, the largest item is related to the implementation of the ERP system, which staff has been doing a great job. We've kicked off that project, re-kicked off that project, so it is underway. And we're starting to do all that work. And then only other real notable items to highlight in Fund 70's ADA transition plan, which is a plan that looks at all public facilities and identifies accessibility improvements that you need to make in order for the buildings to be compliant with federal and state law. We need an updated plan or a plan. So that's in the budget, as well as the stair replacement out front, which I'm sure if anybody's seen those stairs, you would agree they need to be replaced. So then we'll just quickly review the fund balance summary. This didn't change since last time we looked at it. Column A is beginning fund balance, and the column letters are down along the bottom. Column B is revenue. Column C is transfers in, and this is what I was referencing at the
Mhm.
beginning. Revenue plus transfers in is total inflows. And then columns E and F, expenses and transfers out is total outflows. And then we make that projected ending fund balance. One thing to note is that we talked about this, I believe, in the operational budget, is that Cement Hill and Rodeo Flat assessment districts, they need a wholesale review from an accounting perspective. The original accounting, specifically on Cement Hill, is really messy on how it was originally handled. And so it shows a negative fund balance, but we believe that that's not actually a negative fund balance. We believe it's a misrepresentation of buy-offs or payoffs that individual property owners completed, and it just wasn't accredited appropriately.
You know, when we visited that item some time ago, I remember asking, especially as it related to Cement Hill, if we could have some kind of workshop or presentation to go through those, just to bring us all up to date. I've like long forgotten, you know, many of the details.
Yeah,
So-
for sure. So once Sandra and I complete the analysis, Sandra's undertaking the analysis now, then we'll bring this back.
Great, thank you.
Because there will also likely be a couple of board actions related to the final cleanup.
I would imagine so. Yeah, thank you.
As
Yeah,
part of, sorry, as part of that discussion, I'm wondering if we can talk generally about, are there other opportunities within the NID service territory to look at water line extensions? And I know that might be part of the treated water master planning process, but does this financing tool give us an opportunity to look at that for other areas of the district? You know, because I do think that that needs to be part of our long-term plan. But I think you had you considered that a plus and a minus, that financing mechanism. But since we got rid of Duffley, I think we have to consider this as an option.
Yes, we could certainly have that conversation. The formation of assessment districts or special benefit districts is dependent upon a positive vote from the homeowners.
Right.
So typically they are initiated by a homeowner group.
I mean, so for the backbone extension, it'd have to be Lake Wildwood
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
and Valley.
Get after them.
And then Rough and Ready since they're not being served today, but they're the ones running out of water, would they also get a vote?
It just depends, any
gonna
parcel
be-
within the district boundary.
How big a district boundary? Yeah.
Well, I think it would be an interesting conversation as to whether, are there really, the Cement Hill obviously had a nucleus that made sense
Yes.
for service.
Yeah.
Do we have other spots like that,
Right.
whether it be the backbone or some other area? I just don't know enough about the population centers that aren't being served that might be.
I think one thing to keep in mind that just from a purely financial perspective, you know, if I'm just wearing the district hat and not a property owner hat, for the district to want to initiate an effort such as that, you would really want to look to those areas that have a higher density of
Mhm.
Sure.
parcels and connections.
Right.
Because the benefit would come in that we are able to distribute more of our costs over a larger ratepayer base,
Makes
which
sense.
would bring in more funds and lower rates for everybody. If it's, you know, outside of that, it really would be more initiated by a specific group.
And
Because there is a quite an administrative burden you carry when moving those forward.
Right.
And just to finish up on the backbone, a lot of the same reasons the South Yuba Canal is the flume of doom. There's only 2 days supply of water at the Wildwood Treatment Plant. So it's quite an imperil. I mean, they're at risk. So just wanted to draw the comparison.
So we are looking fairly good. Overall, we are being very conservative on our budget. And then as the board knows, we've initiated the internal work for the new rate process. And then we'll start seeing that coming out kind of, some work December, but then we'll kind of go into January, February. And this proposed revenues doesn't include any projected rate increases.
Well, that was my question.
No, we like,
Because we're fuzzy about when those actually kick in.
yeah, no, we try to be very conservative in the event something out of our control happens that delayed or rates got voted down or. This site is showing the interfund transfer schedule, and so this is just the movement of money in between funds. Most of it, almost all of it, is either related to funding for the allocated expenses in the Fund 70. Every parent or major operational fund pays its fair share apportionment of the overall overhead costs, and that is based off of the cost allocation study that the board just recently approved. And then the other items are related to capital project transfers. Depending on how a capital fund projected year-end balance ends up, we typically will be transferring money from the operating fund to the capital fund in an amount equal to the annual capital expenditure. But in the event that there is additional fund balance available, or if we're trying to better balance the operational fund, in some years we do not make that full transfer. And that is what you're seeing this year. Fiscal reserves, we still have our very old fiscal reserve policy and the.
You like it, huh?
Yeah. No, I don't like it because, it's painful for me to not be in compliance with it.
Mhm.
And to have things we just simply don't think are a great idea anymore. But this will be revised through the rate process. Your reserve policy, it largely impacts your rate setting
Mhm.
because any additional funding you have over your amount of reserves, you can then use that funding to buy down rates and or any below the reserve level, you would then need to have higher revenue collection from the
Mhm.
ratepayers.
I have a
Ricky?
question about the reserves, specifically about the FERC reserve at 35 million. So that's been set, excuse me, at 35 million for some time. Does that mean we are not adding, there's no additive money to that FERC reserve?
At this point, no, there's not additional monies to add to the FERC reserve.
No, well, I know, but I just wondered, so is that just going to be fixed at 35 million until we get the bomb dropped on us?
No, it'll be revisited as we get closer to a FERC license. We are taking an additional look at the 4E conditions. Which
Mhm.
largely drives the need for a
Right.
reserve. And once we have those conversations, as well as some of the other initiatives we have going on related to the FERC license as well as to Deer Creek, then we'll revisit what an appropriate reserve level is for FERC. The FERC reserve is essentially just saving up money for a lot of those little projects.
Right.
So there's different schools of thought, but we'll have to get into that once we kind of get these other items we're doing to solidify what the FERC responsibilities or obligations are going to be.
And then my last one, this may sound silly, but so when we have, this list of total minimum reserves is 106 million, does that money is sitting someplace? It's not like this is a goal to have. The money is actually there.
Yeah, so our total reserves are about 127 million.
Right.
So most of our cash is invested on the market.
Right.
We then hold some monies within the local agency investment fund,
Mhm.
which is another investment tool. We view that investment tool kind of as our savings account. And then we keep cash on hand in our checking account too for ongoing expenditures. We monitor those three accounts and money flowing in and out of the district on a weekly basis, and then we make decisions on where to move that monies. We will be bringing an item to a workshop at the next meeting related to the PERS unfunded liability.
Good.
And
was a
that is a different, so rare OPEB, other post-employed benefits is related to
Mhm.
long-term retiree healthcare obligations. And the PERS unfunded liability is an obligation for pension funding that is a result of CalPERS in specific years not meeting their investment revenue targets.
Mhm.
Both of those items fluctuate all the time. The dollar, it's not like you say, okay, I owe $1 million, I pay it on this date and I'm done. Every time you have a valuation, those
Right.
numbers.
It fluctuates. all the time.
But we will be coming forth with a proposal to open an additional trust for PERS unfunded liability. I'm not gonna get into it a whole lot right now, but it can be viewed as an additional investment tool.
Mhm.
Because those monies can be used to pay long-term unfunded liability obligations or your ongoing normal pension costs. So that will be
Seems
something
like a
else.
very sound thing to do.
It is unfunded liability is, we've always been focused on OPEB, and is on one of our strategic priorities is to also
Mhm.
focus on funded liability. So Sandra and I are going to bring back a couple of options. One of them is also to re-amortize our unfunded liability obligation that we currently have to a shorter payback period.
Mhm.
So we'll be bringing those things forward. So I
good.
bring that up
I look
as,
forward to that.
yeah, as an additional investment opportunity. So we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
We have it scheduled for next meeting, correct?
Yeah, and CalPERS is going to be presenting that too, so they
Yeah.
know all the ins and outs. And we already have a SERP trust for our OPEB, so it'll be very similar to that.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's working well for us, so.
Yeah, the OPEB trust that we have, we fund the OPEB trust. The idea would be, if you'll recall, when we had our last report out on the OPEB trust, is that we are getting to a point in the trust where we could be paying annual obligations from the trust. But because we haven't needed to yet, we're continuing to pay down our OPEB obligation. And then at some point, we'll transition to paying out. So from OPEB, we're looking fairly good. Unfunded liability, we need some work.
Mhm.
We do pay unfunded liability annually, but that is just a base payment. We pay it once a year, so we get a little bit of a discount on the payment. How much is our annual payments? About 5 million. Yeah, we pay about 5 million in our annual unfunded liability payment, another 2.5 for our normal cost payment. And then we're gonna have some recommendations for this trust coming forward.
Great. Thank you.
My question revolves around the same discussion about the reserves. Still confused. Not new. So if I get this right, the budget is being balanced by some reserve money.
Mhm.
I figured that out. Poor Monica took the biggest hit. But I noticed in the narrative that it's stated a few times that the certain, and I didn't make a note of those, will be fully funded in 25. In the narrative, it said that.
You're probably talking about the operational reserves. We always fully fund
Yes,
operational.
I am. I'm
reserves.
confusing those.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Operational reserves are intended to ensure cash flow.
Mhm.
So we always like to have about 6 months cash flow on hand. So Sandra and her team, they go through and do an analysis of what our average 6-month payments are and take into consideration the proposed budget. And then we always want to have that much cash on hand.
So this bottom number, the 20 million number on this page, that's, and I didn't drag out the 24, same page from 24 to see the change in the reserves. But this indicates a plus of 20 million.
Yeah, we're looking good with reserves, but that also takes into consideration a couple of reserves are low, and specifically the recreation reserve.
Right.
Recreation is primarily the responsible of hydropower because of the FERC obligations for
Mhm.
recreation. So hydropower does provide subsidy to recreation. So to the extent that we're not overly worried about hydro having a big reserve, we would like to get there. I mean, that is the ultimate goal. But to the extent we don't overly worry about it because it does rely on hydropower for if there's any issues. But if you'll recall, the board approved that 10% annual increase for the
Mhm.
next 3
Right.
years.
Yep.
So we're making progress. It's just unfortunate that as much,
Yeah.
I know as great as Mount Monica does and how great the fee increases were,
Yeah.
then we get hit with this string of bad luck.
Well, my final question on that, I struggle with where the 6 billion comes from to balance the budget out of the reserves. I can't, I'm not paying
So
a
each,
particular reserve.
yeah, so it depends on the fund. So remember,
That's a cumulative amount that comes up with this, out of reserves that makes up the shortfall in the budget.
yes, but it's associated with each fund. So remember, if from a actual perspective, we keep all of our money in a giant bucket together.
right.
And then within that bucket, each fund owns a layer of the bucket. So that's how Sandra And her team, that's why accounting is so important, so that they can go through and their accounting is essentially tracking the bucket, the movement in the bucket and who owns what and who pays what. So when we're saying we're taking money out of reserves, it doesn't necessarily mean we're pulling money off of the market. It means we're accounting for a portion of the bucket, whoever's portion that is.
Let's remember to speak into our mics.
Sir.
Yep, Karen, yep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about if our reserve levels are too high in certain areas, that we would right-size them through the rate process.
Correct.
And so I'm wondering if we are over some, kind of, let's just say $10 million, you want to right-size it. Is that 10 million spread over the period of the rate model? So if we do a 5-year rate model, would that 10 million be spread over 5 years? Or how do you look?
It depends on, and for this upcoming rate period, we have some large capital expenditures that would usually, if you weren't balancing out revenue collection or use of reserves, you'd have a huge spike 1 year and then a drop. Ratepayers don't adjust really well to that drastic of changes. So we utilize revenue collection through rates and application of reserves to rate smooth. You don't want to have these big increases and drops. You want something more gradual. So for example, if our proposed expenditure plan said we would need to do, if you just straight applied expenditures and revenue recovery, that said we need to do a 5%, then a 10%, and then a 5 and a 5, what you would actually probably do is do 6s or 7s across the board. And then you also have to take into account the next rate period. So that's why we start looking at that 10-year outlook on finances and proposed expenditures. So you don't have a big jump the next time as well.
So what do you do with that extra cash then? Is it applied to the budget? It goes into the budget each year? If you're cutting the reserve?
Yeah, we'll know if say we're utilizing reserves to offset rates for years 1, 2, and 3. We'll just always be pointing out that our expenditures are more than our operational revenues, but we're utilizing reserves and we had planned.
So they just come down over time. The money isn't taken out and given, spent frivolously somewhere. It spreads out over the.
It's planned for how we plan for everything else in the budget.
Well, it sounds like an accounting nightmare to me.
There we into the mic.
That's why we have Sandra here.
That's what we have, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. 'Cause I can't even understand what it's explained.
Yeah, Sandra, great
We
job.
enjoy it.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
I'm glad.
so our money is vested in the market that we all know that's not the stock market. It's more secure than that.
We're not allowed to, by the government code, invest in.
Yeah, and
stocks.
I wasn't surprised that CalPERS didn't meet their investment quota, given their investment policy. Do we have, let's just say their investment policy isn't designed to maximize their returns? And if we have problems with that, is there any recourse?
They have recourse. They increase your
Yeah.
UAL.
Yeah, and which seems like indentured. I mean, it's making us the
Being part of,
servants.
being part of CalPERS, you are part of a large animal. And I get this question often, why can't you just leave CalPERS? Well, to leave CalPERS would be a extremely costly endeavor. So there would be costs to leaving. So, to the extent that we have control over it, we don't.
Yeah,
With the trust as well, with the OPEB trust, as well as this new unfunded liability trust, you have some decision making as to how much risk you want to take. So we can have a higher risk portfolio or lower risk, medium risk. We typically kind of go with the medium risk. But outside of that, we don't have any control over CalPERS. It is a governing body, their board is voted on, I believe. I just did see a notice, they did just change their chief investment officer. So I looked at his background, not that it matters what I think.
Window dressing.
Yeah, he looks like he has experience, so.
Yeah, but the board's given direction. And so my point is that due to their, I'll phase this one, but due to their policy, investment policy that doesn't maximize returns, our ratepayers are going to have to pay for it.
There's some years that they've made over 20%, and there's some years where they make 4%. I think their discount rate right now is set at, what was it, 6.8? I think it's set around 6.8% return.
Yeah.
So that's how they calculate your unfunded liabilities. Anytime they don't meet that 6.8 target, then that adds to your unfunded liability. And then anytime they make over that 6.8 target, it reduces their liability. Staffing changes. We did reduce full-time equivalents by 1 from 2024. And we did, there's a couple of positions that were kind of moving around a little bit. We may be coming back to increase full-time, request an increase once the IT OT master plan has been completed. We want to have that work completed before we kind of make any additional staffing changes. But so far, we're looking pretty good.
I'm of the, I mean, we don't have the IT here, but I'm of the opinion that, what is it? Speed of computers double every 2 years. And with AI, we're only months and not years away from anyone, anywhere able to, penetrate any firewall with using AI. And that's been said by a couple of experts that I read. Are we looking at the fact that we can separate our systems and bring in more security?
We have most of our systems are largely separated now. Yeah, we're always looking for improvement on security, taking a new advice. We have several different security services, and then that's also what the IT OT master plan is looking at. Security is going to be an ongoing issue.
Yeah, I just see it being more of a problem going forward.
Absolutely. And it's just more complex.
So if we need more money there,
We'll likely need
Gonna
some
support it.
additional monies, and that was the plan, that was the purpose of the ITOT master plan, was to outline investments that the district would need to make, whether that be hard investments or soft investments such as staff over the next 5-10 year period to really shore up our IT and OT systems. And then that's all we have. So before the board, we request that you take consideration of the proposed resolution to approve the 2025 annual budget.
any public comment? Public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we adopt resolution 2024-37, adopting the 2025 annual budget.
Second.
We have a second by Karen. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Division 1,
Yes,
Yes.
thank you for this work.
Sandra, thank you. Great work.
And
Corey?
Jennifer
And
and
Corey.
Al
Yeah,
and
Corey.
Corey,
Thank you, Corey.
wherever you are, Corey,
And
thank you.
everybody else in finance.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the department heads. They do a lot of work putting this together.
Beautiful.
All right, we have 2 more items.
The fisherman friend working.
That actually worked really well. Those are strong.
There
At first I was kind of like, yeah,
are no nonsense.
that was no nonsense.
Gets us through the harvest.
Yeah. Oh, from coughing?
Dead in winter, yeah.
Mm.
All right. So let's go on to 5B, treated water pipeline reimbursement. Doug?
Well, good morning, board,
Doug,
staff, members of the public, Doug Roderick, Director of Engineering. And apparently the root of all delays.
From from here until February
Even after.
and afterwards,
In afterwards, that's when it's the best. was
next 5
afterwards.
years.
Yeah, it's all my fault. So we're here today to talk about the pipeline, treated water pipeline reimbursement policy. And staff's here recommending that we suspend the policies. And so I'll spend a couple minutes just kind of going through kind of the policy itself, how it works, show you an example or two, and then we can open up for discussions. So Chris, you want to? Thank you. Okay. So, first, just a bit about the policy. The board approved this in 2013, so it's been around for about 11 years. The intent, which was a good one, which was to allow for the recovery of the cost of pipelines that the district had installed over the years since we've been installing treated water lines. Oh. And this was to incorporate all costs that would be incurred, right? Whether it's engineering, environmental permits, the whole 9 yards. The idea was to incorporate all those costs and for folks to pay their fair share of that pipeline that the district had funded and put in back in the day. And so any parcel that has a connection to a pipeline that the district has installed
Mhm.
has to pay this reimbursement fee. And just as an example here, there's about 47% of the pipelines, treated water pipelines that we currently have were installed by the district. The rest have been installed by private individuals or developers, et cetera. So anybody connecting to those pipelines do not pay any reimbursement agreement or reimbursement fee unless there is a reimbursement agreement that runs with those pipes. And those are only typically good for 20 years anyway. So this is only for pipelines that we've installed throughout. So the idea is that we're going to base it on an 8-inch diameter pipe, which is what our standard distribution pipe size is. And so if a pipe is bigger than that in the street, or whether it's a 10-inch or a 20-inch, et cetera, then we just prorate that based on the area between an 8-inch and say a 10-inch, right? The area difference between an 8-inch and a 10-inch is like 60-something percent, 66%. So we would then reduce those costs by that percentage to only have them pay for the 8-inch portion. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, this applies also to variances. So if a variance parcel, which would never have a main line in front of it, but is connecting to that pipe, they also have to pay this reimbursement fee. So they don't get off the hook for that. And it's a lump sum cost. The whole idea is that we come up with a full cost for the project, and then we divide that by the number of parcels that pipeline can serve. And that's how we come up, including variances, and then that's how we come up with the price. Now, this is where it starts to get a little wonky, for lack of a better term. If there's no historical costs available, which quite a bit of the time there are not, because these pipes have been in the ground for quite some time, then the idea is that we do a couple things. The first thing we do is we take 4 similar projects and we come up with a price per foot of what that would be. And those projects keep getting updated as we do newer projects like the newer WLEs, almost said Duffley. We'll be using those costs and putting those in to develop the new price per foot. And any of those costs, we bring them to the current value based on the CCI. So if it was built 3 years ago and it's one of the projects we're using, I'll adjust those costs to today's cost to come up with this price, this average price per foot. Then what we do is the parcel that's requesting the service, we look 1,000 feet in either direction and figure out how many parcels can be served in that roughly 2,000 linear feet. We take our price per foot, times that by the 2,000 feet, We then divide that by the number of parcels that can be served in that 2,000 feet. And that's the price that the parcel has to pay as a pipeline reimbursement. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Awesome.
It can be.
What's that?
It's the number of parcels that can be served.
Yeah, so,
Not the
so what
number
I.
that is being served.
Correct. So when I look at that, I look at, okay, here's a side street here that's got only 2 parcels. I won't have a main line up there, but those would be variances that would be served off it. So I build a boundary of the number of parcels that can be served from this pipe.
So we're holding that money, we're holding that expense until somebody hooks up.
No, the expense has already been done.
Yeah.
All we're doing is
Reimburse.
to reimburse, the new parcel wanting service is reimbursing us for pipe that we've put in 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 60 years ago.
And the fact we're going to go through and start replacing treated water pipe has no really impact.
It doesn't on this program, other than once we do that, then the cost would be based on those new replacement costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, the only thing that doesn't is the TSL, which is the temporary service location. If you guys remember that program, which means it's a parcel that will ultimately have a main line in front of it. And so they're going to be paying their portion of that main line once it gets installed. And so they don't have to pay for the pipe that they're connecting to, quote, temporarily. So they're exempt from having to pay the reimbursement fee.
Doug, are these additive to our just like?
Capacity fees or.
Yeah, our
fees?
capacity.
Yes,
fees? It is additive.
correct.
Okay. Huh. So it can, so,
I'll show you some examples here in a minute.
yeah, okay, you'll give us some examples. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, of course, it remains in effect until we replace it, and then we go to the point where it'll be based on those new costs.
And it's a one-time,
Yeah, correct. But you need to pay it in order to obtain the service.
understood. And are we contemplating, maybe this will be later, some sort of mechanism where these can be paid over time or be attached to the parcel or something? Because that's a huge hit.
Right.
Individual parcel.
So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the recommendation is to not do this policy and to deal with it in the capacity fee study, the
Oh,
capacity
okay.
charge
Well,
study, I believe it's called, that we're currently.
No, I understand we don't do loans.
Yeah.
But, if they're additive, then that's a big bill.
It
and
is.
I'm just,
Can
you
be.
know, you know,
It can be a very.
yeah.
large
And so
bill.
then I'm thinking, well, if that was me, I'd be going, well, I can't afford to do that.
This slide will
Yeah, so-
enlighten you on some of that.
Okay, so I'll be
Okay.
patient and wait.
Awesome. So in the last 11 years, we've had 38 folks or 38 property owners that have paid a reimbursement fee. And that's ranged all over the place in terms of the price.
Mhm.
During that same time, just to give you a feel, there's been 875 new service connections. So of that, only 38 have paid a reimbursement. All the rest were either part of a developer who installed the pipelines or were connected to pipelines that that were not installed by us back in the day. And therefore, they do not have to pay this reimbursement.
So we're only talking about 38.
38. It's a pretty small number that we've had in the last 11 years, which is why I kind of we've collected about 435,000 in these 11 years, which if you do the averages, it's about 42,000 a year. Parcels paying about 11,000 on average. But that number is that's just an average to kind of give you a feel for what that looks like. But the prices are all over the board in terms of what folks are paying. So a couple of them here, just calculations that we've done, and the year is just when I did those calculations. You see that first group, parcel 1, 2, and 3, they're basically the 2 to 3 acre parcel.
Mhm.
There's a reimbursement cost that those folks would have to pay in addition to the connection fees. And it's all because the location and the number of parcels that are in that 2,000-foot area.
So presumably in that 2,000-foot area, if you had, 20 connections, it would be one thing. But if you only had 4 or 5,
Correct.
the price would be significantly.
Correct. Which is the thought, right? Is that it takes
Sure.
more infrastructure to feed
Yeah, I
10-acre
get it.
parcels than
I
it
get
does
it.
postage
But if you're
stamp
one of
parcels.
those folks, it's a tough nut.
Yeah.
Can you What's the history? Why did we do this?
So, so again, the intent, which was a good one, which was to try to recuperate costs for these pipelines that the district had installed. And when we know the costs and we look at a cost for a project, then I look at the whole project, all the parcels that could be served from it, and it's relatively straightforward. It's when you don't know what these costs are,
Right.
is where it got very difficult, I think, for predecessors to try to do that. And so they looked at trying to determine, based on this 2,000 feet is a good number to get an idea of what it costs, because in theory, if it's all 10-acre parcels, it makes sense because it's going to be more per parcel because that 2,000 feet feeds a lot less group than these smaller ones. The problem you have is that in that 2,000 feet, you may have a big density of folks at one end of the 2,000 and not at the other end. So depending on where you're at, when I do the calc, and I'll show you an example, can swing that widely. But I think it was just an idea to try to, 2,000 feet is at least an idea of kind of the neighborhood that you're in, to give you an idea for what, if it's big parcels, you're going to pay more. If small parcels, you're going to pay less. So I think the intent was to try to normalize that a little bit.
Well, it's just kind of interesting because it sounds like you're trying to recoup the past investment, and yet it's higher ratepayers that really paid for it. And so you're penalizing people who aren't part of a subdivision developed or a group of properties developed by a developer. Because in that instance, when you're paying for that prior cost, I don't know, this is.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
part of the
this is
idea
long.
too, right, is that,
Word.
yeah, is that folks that have been on that pipe for a long time have been paying for costs, at least somewhat associated to that. Whereas somebody that hasn't yet, hasn't put anything into.
Except
into that
property
pipe.
taxes.
Well, yeah, but
And it doesn't, yeah, and it doesn't matter, if you tied in 6 months ago, or you tied in the day before the program went into effect, you didn't pay anything,
Right.
which is different than somebody that had already been hooked up for
mhm.
30 years, right? So it's a little, so I'll show you one example here, just kind of give you a feel. So these are basically the same size parcels, about a half-acre parcel, plus or minus. They're on the same pipeline, in the same neighborhood, et cetera. Anticipation just can't, there we go. So they're all connected to the same. Here's the acreages, so they're all pretty similar in size. So I use the 196, that number's actually going up more recently. This is more based on a $25 diameter inch number. Now that we're doing some of these new ones this year, we're gonna be moving that up. So the price for 2,000 feet of pipe is $393,000. So if you look at parcel A, back at that map, there was 30 parcels I could divide. When I take from that parcel, I go 1,000 feet in either direction. There's 30 of them, so they'd pay 13,000 and change. Parcel B, there's only 27 that can be served in their 2,000 feet. So they're gonna pay 14,500. Parcel C has even less, so they're gonna pay 18,700. Again, same pipeline, same neighborhood, same size parcel. And if you
They
go.
ever talk to each
I know, right?
Well, this is more just one of these had requested a reimbursement request, cost.
Parcels are spread out, so.
But they're spread out. But what you see here is if you look at parcel A, if you go to the right, it's a higher density. So when I do my
Mhm.
1,000 feet in either direction, there's more parcels to divide by,
Mhm.
AKA is number smaller. But parcel C, there's several large parcels to the bottom of them, right? So now there's only 3 or 4 on that end of the 1,000 feet, which makes their number go way up.
Is the heavy black line, is that a street or is that a pipe?
That's the pipe.
That's the pipe?
Yeah,
Okay.
the 8-inch steel, yeah. So again, that's kind of the process that we go through. So let's see. So obviously, some of the concerns we have, right, are related to that 2,000 feet and the fact that the variations can be quite extreme, from 30-some thousand dollars to, I've seen them as low as like 1,500 to 2,000. It also doesn't take into account, but when we know the price of a project, I look at the whole pipe section, the whole project that was put in, and all the parcels that can be served. When you do the 2,000 feet, I only look at this piece. I don't look at the whole pipeline that I'm talking about and all the parcels that can be served in it. So that's also a concern. Again, roughly only half of our pipe, or a little less than half our pipe, is district installed. So if you hook up to a pipe that wasn't installed by the district, you don't have to pay the extra fee. These,
I'm having a hard time with this because we've been here for 100 years. Who would have installed those pipes if it weren't us or wasn't us?
developers, like some of the bigger, so like Lake of the Pines and
Like the Pines and Morgan.
Wildwood and all those types of things, right? Typically, the district has not been in the business of expanding pipe for service.
Huh?
Is usually the pipe is extended for service by somebody else, and then we've accepted it and now maintain, operate it, own it, and will replace it in the future.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so it's
And so
normally through
is
this
it-
process that somebody, a group, a neighborhood, an individual, we've done them all, will come in and say, I would like to get water service. I need to extend the pipe 1,000 feet to get to my property. They pay for it, give us the pipe, and then it's ours. So once whatever reimbursement agreement they may have by being the installer of the pipe, once they're done, then anybody that connects to it would not have to pay any fee.
I see.
But you're not thinking about having like how do I put, a development form a mutual water company and they have to maintain their own pipes.
No. Uh-uh.
Okay.
No, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
So is it true, Doug, then that most of the treated pipelines that we're talking about are in more, well, they're not in city limits, right?
Right.
They're in more undeveloped or in more rural areas? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, except for the hubs like Wildwood and Lake
Yeah,
and stuff.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is our system in essence, right? Is that
Yes. Okay.
that's why things are more expensive and we have a lot more pipeline for the amount of
To
customers that we
serve,
have.
yeah,
than
to serve a fewer
somebody in
number of
Roseville or
customers
something
because of the lack of density.
where it's all the
Okay.
densities, right?
This is helpful.
So it's very difficult. And then a lot of this stuff too is we're trying to recuperate a cost from one or two individuals for a section of pipe, because most of them already been connected.
Mhm.
So most of these are fill-in parcels, right? It's in there now, their well's failing, they want to hook up to water, or there's a new customer and they want to hook up to the treated water system. And so we're not really trying to recover the cost of the whole project because most of those parcels have already been connected to it, if that makes sense. So there's just a bunch of those types of things. So what we're recommending doing is that as we're going through the capacity charge study, which we're doing currently right now, and Dustin, you can chime in if you'd like to on that. It does allow for us, and I think I mentioned it, I don't remember the specific statute off the top of my head, but thought I had highlighted it. Yeah, Government Code 66013, which says that you need to use capacity charges for the purposes that they're intended. However, you can potentially use these capacity charges to reimburse the district for prior expenditures incurred for projects benefiting the new connection service, which is, we spent money on these pipelines prior to get them to be able to have the service. So there is an opportunity for us to incorporate those into our capacity charge study. And what we'd want to do then, of course, is you can aggregate that over all the folks. So you come up with a number that everybody's going to be basically paying the same cost based on what that looks like.
We have about 9 million in capacity charges right now, reserves,
Well,
about, but that would remain the same, or that money would then could be accessed for projects.
Fee would
go
up.
Fee would go up.
Yeah,
future
the
guys.
capacity fees will go up.
Right.
We
So,
only use that for projects that increase capacity. Or reimbursement of the district.
Like the-
But that's also a conversation for the capacity fees. This-
Yeah.
But we're just proposing, there's a lot of issues with this particular policy, lots of issues.
And it's better we don't have it.
yeah,
Got it.
And then we'll roll it into the capacity,
yeah.
which is how most agencies, all
Mhm.
agencies do.
Okay.
Because currently, all the capacity fees we've collected up until this point, this component was not part of it, right? So that's why those fees are earmarked for certain things. This would just be another piece that we could potentially look at in the study.
This policy is just sits out there by itself, rarely used, and it.
Correct. I think we believe it's
More
way more
misunderstanding.
burdensome to the individuals wanting to collect service, and also limits, when folks can't pay that additional one, then that pulls away a potential ratepayer from us that will continue to pay rates for the next
It's just
number
a,
of years,
yeah.
right?
Do we have a sense of how many people say, oh, that's kind of like, I can't afford that?
Yeah, I don't specifically, but both Aurora and her team and Tricia, who do these, take these requests,
Yeah,
the
I know-
majority of the time, I've done way over 100 of these in terms of the
The analysis,
analysis, correct?
but we've only done.
We
how many?
38,
38.
and that was just, and then
Tells you
there's,
it is a pivotal decision.
yeah, it is, right? 3 or 4,000 or 5,000, maybe that's a little more palatable, 10, 15, 20,000 on top of your 12,000, 13,000 now.
Last week I was told by someone, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So,
Doug,
Yeah.
this raises an issue for me on the DFW LE. So let's take the Loma Rica project
Yep.
as an example. So for my fellow board members, this was, an expansion of these water lines up in the Loma Rica area, serving that area past the airport. And so under this policy, now, so there was a certain number of people that connected and they chose and they paid whatever it was that they paid. And there was quite a few parcels that didn't connect.
Correct.
So in this example, would the parcels that didn't connect, if they wanted to connect now, they would be charged this additional?
No, so those groups would be charged the price per parcel, because basically in those programs, the district has fronted the money for those
Right.
parcels that didn't participate, and that money, and that has been set. So they would have to pay those fees when they went to connect.
They're preset.
They're
Yeah,
already
well,
preset.
but I
They're
just
preset
wondered
by
if
the
this was then
So
going to
this-
be an additive
No,
thing to
so-
those fees.
No, so if, right now with the policy in place, if somebody came in and did that, they would only pay for that buy-in to that section of pipe
Uh-huh.
and not pay this additional fee.
Okay.
And if we remove this policy, they would still be on the hook for those types of
Understood.
programs like
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
so my personal, I think everybody knows it. This county is going to be more reliant on surface water. And then our ability to treat that water and provide service. And it's not cheap because we have a lot of parcels that are spread out. And, but with the wells getting drier every year and the climate change and how does this policy doesn't enable us to do more of that, more extensions? It just evens the playing field a little bit.
Right, the idea is that, yeah, exactly.
It'll be easier for us to understand it, easier for
If we
people to
ultimately-
understand it.
Yeah, if we ultimately develop a fee structure, if it's in the capacity charge study or whatever the case may be, and that it would be within universal over every place. So
It's the postage stamp theory. It would likely make it more affordable.
it'd make it
Mhm.
more affordable. It'd make it much simpler for our folks dealing with the applications of
It's more
water
defensible.
service.
And helps us that we get to serve more.
Mhm.
Yeah, in theory, if it's more palatable to individuals to be able to connect.
Well, I think it's interesting too. It's a great example of where somebody created this thing and certainly with good intentions,
Absolutely.
but not appreciating the implications because we've hardly made any money off of it. And it would appear, we don't know for sure, that it had a negative impact on a lot of people not connecting, and that is lost revenue. So, and we're not following kind of industry standards. So I think it's a caution to us as board members if we create, I don't know who created this, but, you know, somebody thought of it and they meant well, but it's just
Absolutely.
an example of work. Whoa,
Took up a lot of staff time.
yeah.
It
It
has.
didn't, it didn't
productivity.
yield what it was hoped to yield.
Right, which was a good intention in on what the idea was about. Yeah, absolutely.
So then back to my other point about how an individual finances or pays for this, since this will be an additive to the capacity fees. You said you were going to get to that later. Is that still to come?
Oh,
They would have to secure private
Finance.
financing.
They would. Okay.
We don't.
No, I know we're not doing it, but I just wondered if we, oh, I just wonder, I just had to raise the question.
I think
because
one
it's
of the
a
things-
lot of money.
we and the board will have to ultimately decide is when we come up with what we think that number is and what that looks like to the overall cost of the capacity fees and whether that's something we need to do or not do.
Most agency, every other agency, they have all, you know, basically when you construct a new home or whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
and you know, those all-in connection fees are upwards of $50,000 or $60,000 a parcel.
Yeah.
So it's just the reality of building and connecting in California. We don't have any opportunity for financing them.
No, I get that part, but so I'm more concerned about the people that, are we going to go back to them? Is there any? No, so this is just going forward.
Correct. Just like before this
Okay,
policy
good.
happened, all those folks did not have to pay that. And then
Got
the
it.
policy
Okay, I
was
get you.
for
Okay.
another- Yeah.
When does the capacity fee study get completed?
Probably fairly quickly.
Yeah, I would think that we'll probably bring in something to the board the end of the year or right in January timeframe.
While you're still
February.
here.
Maybe March 1st. Might be
No. Nice try.
It's coming along.
If it's delayed, it's my fault.
Probably, I guess maybe January, February. We just met with the consultant again.
Still pretty snowy in Montana in March.
Okay.
So do we have a?
Okay, I
motion?
got it. Thank you.
No, I want a motion first.
Okay,
Well, I'll do public comment.
whatever you want, Mr. President.
Let's do public comment because we don't see any. Michael?
I realize this is a agenda item, so I'll ask the question, but maybe someone can answer it for me later. It seemed to me that I heard either the last meeting or the previous meeting that the treated water ranges from a very low percent during the winter and then goes up some huge percentage at max use of treated water. And I'm at the time I heard that, I was kind of interested in understanding how is it possible that somebody drinking water can go from a certain amount of use in the winter to some huge number in the middle of the summer or whatever. I'm wondering,
Outdoor
how,
watering.
huh?
Outdoor water.
all
Outdoor
outdoor.
landscaping?
I mean, that number was massive. I mean, it was like shocking to me, the difference of
It's-
that.
Not massive in the context when you compare it to raw water use. So it's just outdoor water use is,
About 8-9% of our.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys answering it. It was shocking. The other part of this,
And it's also way down from 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah,
good.
per capita use.
And then I've done a fair amount of NID extensions, both for NID and also for private contractors or with private contractors. And it seems to me that with that background, that this fee for connection should be looked at maybe instead of 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet over the entire system. That way it's attractive to people to hook up instead of the high cost for somebody to hook up to 1,000 feet that there's only 10 parcels on. I mean, I would encourage if having people hook up is important to NID for that income, is to somehow generalize it over the whole system or a whole area. And then the other part of it too is when we do these extensions, we also leave them open at the other end so that they can be extended on the other end. So that 2,000 feet or 1,000 feet is not necessarily representative of those parcels, because it's also representative of the possibility of future parcels. So it's kind of, to me, it seems really complicated and doesn't seem as simple as 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. I just wanted to share that.
That's what we're doing.
That's
Yeah.
the idea with.
That's,
I think it'd be nice to just know, oh, it's going to cost you $25,000 to hook up,
that's
or,
what the proposal is.
yeah, I would definitely support that.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution approving, number one, suspending section 10.06.01 of the district's rules and regulations, and two, suspending policy 3175 of the district's policy manual.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug.
Doug. Let's get on to 5C, Rollins, Emergency Slope and Sediment Stabilization Project.
Morning, Board. I'm Greg
Hey.
Jones, the Assistant General Manager, and fortunate enough to bring this to you today. So what we're looking for today is a budget amendment of not to exceed $250,000 for a future contract to be awarded to a contractor in the coming week or two, hopefully. So a little bit of background: over the summer, there was a individual not affiliated with NID, private parcel property owner near NID's parcels on Rollins Lake, and who had took it upon himself to drive a very large excavator down a steep area onto and into Rollins Reservoir.
Literally into.
Literally
Yes.
slipped and slid into Rollins Reservoir. That individual then finally became known to us after quite a bit of time. Took a little while to figure out who it was. Where we're talking about, it's a very remote section of Rollins near the inlet of the Bear River. Not easily accessed, no easy access for NID. We're pretty much landlocked in this area in terms of terrestrial access. You could get to it by the reservoir. However, the reservoir was dropping around this same time frame. So it was very difficult to find and get in there and assess the problem. Fish and Game had worked with the individual over the course of about a month and a half to remove the excavator from Rollins. So thankfully they were on site and they had assisted in the oversight. Now it became time to fix the section of this newly defined road cut in the middle of the woods, down about, 600 vertical feet from the top of the hill, down to the section of property where NID owns along the edge of Rollins as we go around. After we were able to finally access the area, took a look at it, we came up, I had identified a particular engineering firm locally to help with a design plan for what would be the best case to remediate and stabilize the soil on NID's property only. So after in the meantime, I'll just go through. As we contacted the owner in August, NID had secured a right of entry agreement with the property owner. We have to get through his property in order to get to our property. That is the only form of access that is feasible in order to get to the property this year. And within that period of time, the property owner had multiple times verbally admitted he was the one that did the work, admitted he was the one responsible, admitted he would pay for it, actually secured an agreement responsible for him paying the funds and the expense to remediate the soil. We've worked with Dustin and Manazian to create that form, and it's now in our files. So with that all said, we have created a request for quote. We went out through our procurement policy to 3 individual local contractors whom we know well, who can do work like this. After a site visit around the 30th of September, it was sort of verbally discussed that this plan that we had originally was very expensive, extremely expensive. And so
But
about,
would it brought it back to the same?
well, as with all earthwork, you never fully can tell until years have passed. It would have been a good fix for sure.
We're looking to stabilize the area.
Right.
We're looking to stabilize the area. So when Greg went out, we had solicited 3 additional bids. So this item's a little different in that we're not asking for specific approval for a specific contractor, but authorization to enter into a contract due to the coming.
Just to get the
Weather.
work done because
Yeah.
we were running out of.
Yeah.
We're now running out of time.
Yeah.
So we adjusted the time frame. We adjusted the scale
scope.
and the scope.
Okay.
And so with that, some verbalized conversations are such that, you know, we believe that 250 might be enough to finalize the project work to be done. We're waiting for those quotes to come back. We haven't seen them at this point, but we anticipate them in the next couple days.
And all 3 are local.
They are. They've written, so we went out to Hanson Brothers, C&D, and Neal's Control Blasting. So we're seeking at this time to appropriate the funds, move 250,000 in to afford the contract to work through it. Once the project work is done, then we will be, well, we're in constant communications with the owner anyway, but we will then be seeking a reimbursement expense through that.
This is just for our property.
This is only for our property.
And is he working on his section? Because I mean, won't it cause a problem if we only stabilize the lower part and he's got the upper part?
Part of our project is to isolate the upper section and divert water that will be coming down and flow that would be coming down a roadway to turn it off into the woods before it reaches our property. So hopefully the only stabilization impact that we're going to find on our section of the road of the property is just localized water. You're probably going to still have sheet flow from above. However, that is not our property and we cannot force him to do that work.
We can't. Fish and Game can.
Not to my knowledge.
So he cleared,
County grading permit. Yeah, they may pursue.
County's been made aware of this as well.
I have a couple questions. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Chris,
Chris,
you're-
go ahead.
go ahead, Ricky.
Thank you.
He's yielding.
He's yielding. the
You'll
floor.
ask my
Thank you so
question.
much. So what if so we're entering into a written agreement with this individual to reimburse us, or is it going to be actual costs not to exceed? Is it 250 or is it just whatever it costs?
Whatever.
It's
It's
whatever
actual
it costs.
costs.
It's actual, okay.
Staff time,
Doesn't pay,
legal
we
time.
would end up in litigation.
And then that was the other piece. If he doesn't pay, I asked Jen this yesterday, can we lien his property?
Only after we go through litigation.
Yeah, once you obtain a judgment,
Yeah.
you collect the judgment.
See, like if I have my roof replaced at my house, the contractor pre-liens my property.
We don't have.
We don't have mechanic lien
Yeah.
type authority like that.
Okay, huh, okay.
Hmm.
So then does the agreement cover the costs of litigation should we need to do it? In other words, attorney's fees and whatever additional costs? Like if he doesn't pay and we got to take him
Have
to
to refresh
litigate.
my memory. I don't recall offhand if we have an attorney fee clause or not.
I don't believe we do.
We would
But
go for
It would be a really good thing to have an attorney fee clause.
The agreement's already done.
Agreement's done.
We would try to recover every fee, every cost.
Uh-huh.
We've got staff time in this. We've
I
got
know.
legal time.
Egregious,
We've-
really.
It really is.
Environmental mitigation.
Yeah, there's a number, trespassing, trees cut. I mean, there's a number of actions that were that were done within a period of, we don't even know. Like I said, it's so remote. Normally we wouldn't even know about this until the lake comes back up and somebody's out there recreating and.
Is the parcel,
Yeah.
is the parcel quite large that we're talking about? The individual's parcel, is it a large
Yeah.
parcel? So is there anything to prevent that person from doing this, you know, like if it's a 50-acre parcel upstream? Is it, other than when we catch them, you're going to have to do this all over again?
Whack-a-mole?
Whack-a-mole? Okay.
No, I
mean, at
can't,
some
I
point
can't,
you
I
could-
can't really answer.
You would talk to the DA.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So what, so I'm assuming you cleared the land besides, you get this road in there, right? So you cut trees and brush. Did you do all that too?
Well, it's assumed and it's been noted to us that this used to be an old logging road. We don't know that for a fact.
And then you trespassed over how many lineal feet?
It's about 400
Yeah.
from
Oh,
our
yeah.
property line to the water line.
What's our recourse for trespass?
There's actually removal of trees, you get treble damages. There's very significant legal recourse.
Mhm.
All right, so we have a resolution proposed to the board for the budget amendment and then authorization for execution of the contract.
Okay, well, I would move.
Well,
that-
public
Oh,
comment?
public comment, okay, sorry.
It is a little
You're a
crazy.
token public.
Mhm.
Yeah, seeing none, public comments closed, resolution.
Thank you. I would move that we approve the resolution number 2024-39 as a budget amendment for the Rollins Emergency Slope and Sediment Stabilization Project number 2709.
I'll second.
Karen, seconds.
Second.
Karen,
I did.
all right, roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Division 1,
Yes,
Division 5.
Yes,
Thank you.
great, thank you, and go get
I'm a
him,
whack,
go get him. Yeah.
I'm a whack-a-mole.
Oh, get
Fun
your,
with it,
all
Greg.
get your mallet.
Fun with it, Greg.
go get him.
I'm
I just,
enjoying it.
This is just egregious. It's horrible.
Yes.
yeah,
Did his, was it his excavator leak any
oil.
fluids?
It was,
oil?
as far as I know, it was contained.
Yeah, that's what every person who loses an excavator in the damn.
Yeah, I know,
reservoir
right.
says. All right,
Thank you.
Not very long. The
Couple weeks.
the reservoir had
Receded.
receded
He drove it
while it
out.
was there.
You drove
We
it out.
drove it out.
Yeah, I was able to get it out.
Yeah, once the
Dry it
water
off.
dropped, he drove it out.
okay, let's
Where's
get
the
on to,
pictures, Greg? I wanna
I know,
see-
we wanted pictures.
Oh, you'd
I have pictures.
you'd have to take a boat to
have-
get there.
Decided not to make a
all right,
presentation.
general manager's report.
All right, I have 2 items. I have good news and super good news.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yay.
Introduction.
Don't ruin my surprise.
Stealing her thunder.
Stealing my thunder. He's the super good news. Peter Wade, please come up. So I wanted to, come to the seat. So Peter Wade is the new director of power systems. We are very excited for him to be here. He started a week ago Monday, and he's been just wonderful. So it's been a pleasure to have him. He has lots of great ideas. He's doing really good, well with staff. He's super smart, which we like. So Peter, you want to introduce yourself?
Is on? Yeah. All
Are
right.
you on? Yeah.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Definitely excited to be here. Looking forward to working with the team, working with this team.
I can barely even hear.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just
Say it
like-
all
Hey,
over
Peter,
again.
just like these 2 directors, they need to speak in their mic better.
Gotta get up here.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to join the team here at NID. Got about 25 years of history operating and running hydropower projects for various other owners prior to this. So look forward to working with the hydroelectric team and working with the NID team here as well.
Excellent. Welcome.
Aboard, Peter.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you live locally?
I live down the hill, down in Lincoln. We've been there,
Nice.
we've had our house there about 23 years. Got 4 kids, 2 in college, 2 in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Way to go.
We'll have him for at least 20 years.
That's,
Plenty of reasons to work.
it's a good succession thing. I
We
like-
call it master's program.
People with lots of
PhDs.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get them longer.
Nice. So you don't have to move. Good.
True.
Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah.
So I just want to welcome Peter. We are very excited to have him.
That is very exciting.
So he stole my thunder.
Ooh, look at, you got the
Wait a
snake eye.
minute, wait.
You got the snake eye. I saw it.
You made the great hire.
Yes.
That's also,
Well, he made it easy to do, so I can't take any credit for it. The next item I just wanted to touch on is, so as the board knows, we are in an active recruitment for the Division 4 Board of Director position, and it's been going well so far. We have received, what, 3, Chris? 3 applicants. There's a couple of more people I am speaking to, so I've been out kind of shaking the bushes, making lots of contact with lots of people. Been coordinating with both of the Placer and Nevada County Ag Commissions to get additional ideas. So I think we're looking good. What I'm gonna do is this Friday, I'm gonna send kind of a pre-batch out. The applications we're doing the 28th, 25th? On the 25th, so that was our deadline, October 25th for final submittal. I'm gonna kind of batch them out to you because I know that you're of interest of who has applied. And then on November 5th, we've called for a special meeting. It is a public meeting by law. So we'll kind of have a, we'll pre-prepare you with the applications. And then you're going to be able to ask any questions. And then the decision does need to be made in open session.
Did you say November 5th or 6th?
November 6th.
Yeah. 25th is the interviews.
25th, yeah, I'm gonna have
Friday?
to, yeah, I just kind of thought of something. I will report back on the process.
okay. You know what? I wanted to ask, maybe this question for Dustin, but once we get the names of these folks, is it permissible for, like, I went and, when Trevor was running, I went and just had lunch with Trevor and just talked to him. Is that something that we are permitted to do for these folks who are applying?
It is. I would caution against it.
Okay,
You know, one thing, when you kind of declare your candidacy, you become, Brown Act, subject to the Brown Act.
sure, yeah,
So you got to be careful about that.
okay,
The other thing is just more of a integrity of the process. So a lot of times, what I like to see is not legally required, so it's more of a matter of policy, but you come up with questions and then you ask each interested person the same question. So you don't give them advance notice, you don't give them a preview,
okay.
you don't ask the hardball questions for one party but not the other. So it's really a level playing field. Now, that being said, the interested parties absolutely have access to Jennifer's staff. I would encourage them to take advantage of that. So I don't know, did you want to comment?
No, I just want to, I want to think about one portion of the process. But we'll report back on that. But I do plan on batching out the applications we've already received.
So my feeling on that is that we have to make a decision on what is presented here.
Well, yeah,
We're not out looking, what is presented here is what our decision is based
Well,
on.
It's not a public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah, so not necessary. You're not acting. in it.
Doing your own background checks and.
And obviously, the candidates need to meet minimum qualifications. They have to be a landowner or resident of the division. They have to be a voter of the division. So, the questionnaire that we're asking folks to complete will flesh that out. And then above and beyond that, qualifications, prior work experience, education, those types of things can be.
do we have an ability in that questionnaire you're talking about to say, like, why? Why are you interested here? What is it that is motivating you to be a
Yes.
member? So that is in there.
It
as
is one of
well.
the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we ask them how they would have voted on items brought to us previously?
I would recommend not that.
No, I don't think so.
Are you thinking backbone extension?
Oh my God.
I thought that thing had gone away.
Yeah, me too.
No.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So is there any more questions related to that topic? No? Okay, I'm done.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, so the only thing I have is I had got a kudo yesterday from a guy who's moved here from the Bay Area and thinks the water is so cheap, he's just ecstatic.
Raw water or treated?
Raw water. Yeah. And the fact that he has it. He's in Karen's division.
Nice.
Yeah. That's all. It's just fun to hear that because we hear the other side regularly, so.
And I heard it on the treated water side.
Did you?
for it.
Well, I've heard it,
Yeah.
I've heard it on the
For
treated water.
Another Bay Area mover who
right.
said it's like a
Yeah.
fraction of
Yes.
Bay Area costs.
Karen?
I attended the Lake of the Pines Oktoberfest. I didn't drink any beer, however, and
Missed out on opportunity there.
but it was noon. I had a hot dog instead. And then I attended a Supervisor Scholefield's annual barbecue, and tomorrow I'm going to meet with Christian Valley residents.
Nice. Ricky?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the LAFCO annual conference that is being held in Yosemite. And the reason I was excited about it is their whole focus of this 3-day event is on water and consolidations of, all of those things that are very present and for us right now. So I'll be attending that all next week. No, it's not. It's at Tenaya, which I've never been to. And then, Rich and I yesterday went and filmed a video thanking the Bear Yuba Land Trust for naming NID as a partner of the year. So that is really going to be a great event. What day is it? The actual awards?
November 16th, 9:30 to 11:30 at the
Whoa.
Miners Foundry.
Aren't you just right on it? Okay, so, anyway, Rich and we had a good time, and you know what? I got to use a teleprompter for the first time.
Oh,
I've
fancy.
never used that before.
You're like
That
a
was-
real politician now.
No, not really. We had to do a lot of takes. I will tell you that.
Let me tell you that it went okay. Oh, yeah. Actually, Ricky she knocked it out of the park. You were good.
Well, thank you very much. But it's cool to have a teleprompter. And Rich was great too. And we took 2 different pieces of the pie and he gave some history and I talked about, the collaboration between the agencies and what the benefit is for our trails and the environment. So it was a really good thing.
It was.
Mhm.
And
Go ahead. I'm done.
okay, and to add to that meeting, Bill Hare was sitting there when we walked in. And if any of you know Bill Hare, his trail building abilities are amazing. He respects property rights. He respects people's individual, preferences. He just doesn't push. He works with people. He shows the benefit of a trail. When I first met him over 20 years ago, I got, oh my gosh, on the land trust, right? Here's trails and I'm an ag guy and I really don't want to trail through my property.
Mhm.
Bill was the first to support that. It's only where it's supposed to be. And then the fact that his wife Joyce makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the world, bar none. I mean, this guy he's amazing. And then afterwards, Ramona, who's in charge of the Nevada County media, and she's a rock star, really wants to work with us on getting our message out. Anything. We're gonna have.
Did the one with?
Well, they're developing.
Nevada County Media?
No, they're developing a new actual news program where they're going to have people come.
Just did it
November
this-
4th, it
like-
launches,
Local news is what they're doing.
and it's gonna
I was
be,
supposed to do it and you didn't.
no, she emailed you and you.
Yeah,
forwarded
we
it.
were all on an
Yeah.
email we got this morning about their news
Yeah.
No, I get that.
launch. Yeah.
But I'll just say Ramona can get it done. She is really good.
Great.
She has a lot of experience and she didn't want these half-hour interviews. She wants, okay, here's the message, here's the deep dive. All right, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. The message is out there and I think it's going to be really effective.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's Sierra Harvest Luncheon. And it's 11:30 and I can't remember where
I didn't get an invite.
last year was at the Grass Valley Vet Building, but I don't know where. It is
You and I
now.
went last year.
And then, okay, so end of the month, and I'm not quite sure of the date. It could be around October 25th, around there. The garden goddesses are coming to our farm. And they had one about 4 years ago, and okay, wow, the food's outrageous. There's a farm tour. It's incredible. They know what they're doing. And they're bringing a comedian in. Last time he came about 4 years ago, and I go, comedian, all right? Well, the guy turns out to be Eddie Brill, who opened for Letterman for 15 years. The guy's good. He has you in 10 seconds, and you're laughing your butt off. So to help pay Eddie's fee, $10, but I'll fill you in. It's at the farm in Penn Valley. But Eddie Brill is worth the price of admission and the food.
Cool.
So I think that's about it. We are adjourned.